with voters, with Hispanic voters, and you better do something fast. Here's why. Ever since the president shifted his stance on illegal immigration, you've been even more tentative than normal responding to him. Now, I'm sure there's a very logical reason for that, something about election year, I don't know. But maybe you don't want to tick voters off on this, but apparently you are ticking off Latino voters because of this and your response to this. Many of them in the president's switch are saying that, well, at least he's providing a path to citizenship. Now, I know a lot of this must be bogus to you, Governor, but it is what it is. A lot of Latino voters see in your response something that's even more bogus, that your criticism of the president's offering a short-term solution to a long-term problem is stating the obvious. Duh, we know that, they know that. But when you refuse to say whether you as president would overturn that solution, you just leave many wondering. And it goes something like this in the Latino community. The president has a plan that Romney does not. Now, I know that isn't fair. I know you say it isn't right, but it is what it is. And I am not saying that the president's entirely wrong. He is moving this immigration ball. And if you don't respond, Governor, he is going to spike that ball because it is an election year. Because this past week alone, the president's support among Hispanics has shot up 5%. And in the swing state of Florida, he swung back into the lead. These might very well be temporary developments. I grant you that. But they do reflect firm repudiation of your all-too-cautious approach. I'm not saying you're doomed, Governor. I am saying with this key demographic, you're ticking a lot of them off, Governor. First, by your weak response, then adding insult to injury, the whole Marco Rubio thing. Your response to reports that he's not being vetted as a potential running mate. Now, none of these wounds are fatal, but unless you address them and head-on and fully, they will hurt. Take a look at some of these polls. A lot of these guys are hurt. But worse, Governor, a lot of them are something you do not want them to be. Angry. To Sabrina Schaeffer, who says Romney might be stumbling on this, but it's the president who's not wasting a nanosecond capitalizing on this. And that's what I kind of mean. I know this is a political kind of a football, Sabrina, but to a key constituency, it looks like one guy's moving, the other guy's just resisting. I don't think that's fair or right, but I think that impression is out there.
I think you're right. I mean, look, we're 5 months out from an election. You know, we're down there in Florida making this big speech. But I think the fact is that voters know that, you know, for the last 4 years, he's barely touched this issue, even though he said it was going to be a primary policy issue that he was going to, you know, focus on when he came into office. And so I think that people realize that this is some political theater here. More importantly, though, the Latino, you know, community is facing over 30% unemployment. So I just wonder how far this is really going to take the president.
That's what fascinates me, Sabrina. I saw those statistics, too. And I'm wondering, how can a group, a collective group that has, you know, 28 to 32% unemployment, in some key areas where there's high Latino populations, it's closer to 40%.
Right.
How could the president be running away with this group?
Well, you know, I wonder the same thing, because also on the issue of immigration, this is not a monolithic voting bloc. I mean, these are the Hispanic community, like any community in the United States, is made up with lots of different people, lots of different opinions, and this is in many ways sort of democratic pandering. This is identity politics. We're thinking, well, this is how we'll secure their votes for November. But I think that ultimately, a few days from now, when this speech is sort of long forgotten, Hispanic voters are going to think, do I have a job? Is there economic growth? Is there job creation? Is the president tackling these issues head on? Have health care costs come down? These are the issues that affect people on a day-to-day basis, all Americans.
But like you say, it's not affected them yet, or maybe they just figure, well, this guy, the direction is more our friend than it was. I mean, this unemployment rate among Latinos used to be higher. It's hard to believe that it was higher, but maybe they figure, or they're patient to say, well, the trend is looking slightly friendlier. I don't know if that's out there, but I am amazed, as are you, with these numbers and how monolithic they appear for the moment to be for the president.
I mean, I agree to some extent. I also think that we have to keep this in perspective. I mean, really, when we're looking at what states this is going to affect, it really comes down to what my understanding is 3 states: Colorado, Nevada, and Florida. And Florida is different because Florida is The
Well, maybe
Hispanic
that
voters
means
are made
you
up
need a
of Cubans.
Rubio on the ticket, or would that be just too patronizing, too cliche?
Well, it's identity politics versus identity politics, right? But I
Right.
definitely think that none of this is happening in a vacuum. I think you're right. I mean, I think clearly the chatter around Rubio is you know, there was a purpose for it. And I think that, look, Rubio on the margin could have an impact. We don't know, so we'll have to wait and see.
Real quickly on the Rubio thing, my view of it, talk about optics, and I'm sorry to overuse that phrase, I don't think it looks good for Romney to have a story out there that Rubio isn't vetted, then to hurry out and say, oh yeah, Rubio's being vetted, but then again, only me and one other person know whether he's being vetted. And then if you're in the Latino community and you want to see one of your own put on a presidential ticket, you're insulting them all over again. And then you have this big weekend power out in Utah, and there could be a legitimate reason for Rubio not being there, but he is not there. So the optics, again, don't look good, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that this has sort of been a pattern with the Romney campaign. I think that they're often sort of unsure of how to respond to situations. We've certainly seen this issue with some of the women's issues that have come up over the last few months. And I think that there's been some stumbling as a result. Of course, all of this may be, you know, forgotten on Monday if the Supreme Court rules on Obamacare, right? Yeah,
well, we'll just see. You know, that could all fall a variety of ways. Even a defeat, they could seize on that. That is the administration. As a political issue.
That's right.
You're right.
That's
Sabrina,
right.
it is great having you. Thank you for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
When we come back, Abe